Gene Taylor, welcome to the world of forced hands. I hope you had fun playing yours. Now it's almost out of your control. The world around you is dictating the future of Kansas State football, and it's time to listen to that fact. Now hear me out. You see the thumbnail, you see what we're talking about, you know the man we're talking about today. We're talking about the future of Kansas State football. I want to kind of sum up the last 48 hours for K-State fans. Obviously, the massive news is Mike Gundy is out at Oklahoma State. After 21 years, one of the most dedicated coaches of the Big 12, a guy that is college football through and through, his time came to an end, and the day is done in Stillwater for Mike Gundy. Now, my thought was immediately, how does this affect the Cats? And the quick answer, one, you're getting a great coach out of the Big 12 who's been struggling, clearly hadn't adapted to NIL, clearly hadn't adapted to how college football is going to be the next 10 years, next 5 years even. It was time for a move to be made. The shocking part was they didn't wait till the end of the season. They didn't backpedal. They said, you know what? This is the time for us. We need to get a head start in the next cycle of getting the guy we want to be the head coach of Oklahoma State for the future. So for Kansas State, it didn't take longer than 3 minutes for the name Colin Klein to be floated out there as a potential future head coach who understands the landscape of recruiting the Big 12, who understands Big 12 football, who has Texas ties, Oklahoma ties, Kansas ties. Anything you want in a coach, Colin Klein has that. He's young. He understands the landscape of where college football is headed. He understands you have to have boosters. You have to have fundraising. You have to have everybody buy into the vision of what college football, of where college football is heading. For Kansas State, that puts you in an interesting spot. We are not good right now. We are 1-3 after 4 games, a team that everybody thought was going to compete for a college football playoff spot, and it looks like the season's a wash. We haven't even turned the calendar over to October yet. That's how early this is, and we're already at that point. Now let's talk facts alone. This past season, so prior to this coming 2025 season, the 2024 offseason saw 3 power conference teams move on from their head coaches. Just 3 all offseason. You had North Carolina, obviously hired Bill Belichick. Dumbass decision. It is what it is. Then you had West Virginia, brought Rich Rod back, and then Purdue hires Barry Odom. Those were the only 3 major power conference jobs that opened up. This year, it is September 24th that I'm recording this, I believe. Yeah, September 24th. We already have 4 open power conference jobs. It's been less than a month of football. Think about that. Hear that when I say this. You already have openings at Stanford, UCLA, Virginia Tech, and Oklahoma State. And folks, this is the reality of where college football is heading. Nobody's waiting. The buyout is one thing, I get that. It takes money to win in college football. It takes leadership to win in college football. But if you miss the train for where college football is headed, you are left behind faster than anybody can imagine. That is what's happening in college football. That's why you're seeing so many turnovers mid-season, early season, whatever the case is. People understand we need to get in line to get our guy. We can't be the people that are 9th or 12th in line. We need to be the first or second person to get a crack at the person we want. Now, obviously, K-State isn't an active opening for a head coach to look at. That said, you cannot afford to miss out on Colin Klein. I'll just say that now. Chris Klieman has done an amazing job for Kansas State. I'm not here to make this video to say Chris Klieman sucks, we hate him. That's not what I'm here to say. Coach Klieman is clearly a guy who is dedicated to Kansas State football. He did the necessary steps to get us from a post-Bill Snyder world where you're taking over for a legend to establish the program as one of the premier voices in college football. That is a challenge in itself. Chris Klieman successfully did that. However, things have changed a little bit. And Oklahoma State is starting to force some hands in the college football landscape. That is not hard to see for me. It shouldn't be hard to see for you as well. Like I said, there's 4 jobs already open. If you're Kansas State, Colin Klein's going to be mentioned in every single job opening that pops up. Don't even ask me why. You understand why. He's leading a top 25 offense at an SEC school. He's a culture guy, a program guy, understands the physicality. He also understands the likelihood of where college football is headed through NIL and revenue sharing and boosters and fundraising and all the different things that are back channels for some of these older guys in college football like Mike Gundy's of the world. He understands that that's not how college football is, and it won't be ever again. College football is a new game every single day. You need a young coach who's understood and ready for that challenge. Now, Chris Klieman has had some health struggles. He's had some issues. We can see it in press conferences. It feels like he's always dancing around the topic. The guy is not 100% well. I don't know why. I don't know what all the ins and outs are, but reporters have talked about it. People have talked about it. The guy is not 100%, and that's just the way you look at it. So my question is this. If you're Kansas State, you know you have a maximum, and I mean a maximum, of 2 years of Chris Klieman left before he retires and sits on a beach somewhere. That is awesome. That's fine and dandy. I hope Chris Klieman has an awesome retirement when that day comes. But if you're Kansas State, you cannot afford to miss out on Colin Klein because it will truly put your program behind the 8 ball financially or investing in the future of college athletics, whether that's through realignment or even just the future of Kansas State. You cannot afford to miss out on this. Now, do I think Colin Klein's going to be the first guy on the board for the Oklahoma State job? I don't. I think he's probably, in the second tier of guys that they're going to say this could be an awesome choice, not because he's not deserving, but because they're very, very big on local recruiting ties to Oklahoma State. Not to say Colin Klein isn't that, but the three guys that have been mentioned, Colin Klein will absolutely get an interview, and I'll talk about that here in a sec, but the three dudes that come to mind are G.J. Kinney at Texas State. That's the guy I'd hire if I'm being perfectly honest. If I had my money, if I'm sitting there, I'd hire him, or I'd hire Alex Golish from USF. The other guy that's going to be talked about is Zach Robinson, the current offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. Because of his proximity to Oklahoma State, he's a former quarterback there. Des Bryant's advocating for him. The alumni base understands they want an Oklahoma State Cowboy. Now, that's not the way it goes all the time, because Colin Klein will absolutely, rightfully so, get an interview at Oklahoma State. And if I'm Colin Klein, I would absolutely take the interview. And the caveat is this. You know the guy's going to take interviews. This will not be the first, and it won't be the last. If you're Kansas State, you will not survive one more offseason without Colin Klein getting a head coaching job. The guy is ready. He wants to come home. This will be his first destination in Kansas State. And if you say, you know what, we got one more year of Chris Klieman, then we'll see. There's no we'll see. I think there's going to be major conference changes at the head coaching spots in the Big 12, let alone schools elsewhere, the SEC. This dude isn't exactly sitting on the back burner saying, well, what about Colin Klein? What about him? You know everything you need to know about him. This is the dude that Kansas State needs to bring home, and you cannot afford to wait another season. It is this year, it is now or never, and I truly say that. Not to say you should fire Chris Klieman. I think you need to kind of force the hand of, Coach, you've done incredible stuff for us at Kansas State, but the future of Kansas State doesn't necessarily rest with you. And I think you see the writing on the wall. Chris Klieman himself has to see it. Like, say this season goes the way it's going right now and you finish 4-8, or you finish 3-9, or God forbid, even worse than that, say you scrape a bowl win at 6-6. Hear me out. If Chris Klieman wants to go one more season and say, you know what, I want to go out on a high note, I want to prove myself, that's great, that's fine and dandy. You are screwing the future of Kansas State football by doing that. Hear me out in this. Why would you let the guy go one more season if it's possible? Obviously, he's under contract. You can't just force people to do XYZ thing, but you need to be transparent with Chris Klieman. Because if the guy has a shit season this year, then comes back another season next year, Colin Klein's going to get a head coaching job. And he's not going to go 1 year somewhere else and then try to make the step. Wherever he goes, he's there. And sure, maybe 5-6 years down the road, maybe that's a different conversation, but you're not exactly in the spot where you can afford to poach away an active head coach at a Big 12 rival or somebody in the conference or even in the SEC. Like, Colin Klein might love Kansas State, and he's going to give us the benefit of the doubt in every single opportunity possible. But when the ship has sailed, the ship has sailed, and that thing's not coming back. So when you look at the numbers, like, if you finish with a shit season, like I said, you're going to lose your team. I mean, truly. If no change happens, and that's not just saying, well, let's hire a new offensive coordinator, let's hire a new defensive coordinator. If no change happens, Avery Johnson's gone, Lincoln Cure's gone, Dylan Edwards gone, all your stars, Quay Moss, Jace Brown, all these guys will be elsewhere. What is the point of thugging it out for one more season after that and then trying to rebuild in a guy that isn't going to be here through a rebuild? That's the situation. This roster doesn't have the depth of the talent recruited for 4, 5, 6 seasons beyond this. Like, you have not done the necessary work to get to that point. And that's a new thing. Obviously, this team looked incredible on paper, but the mass exodus does not bode well for the future of Kansas State, because if you want to prove yourself one more year after this, like, hey, I really want to finish out on a high note, that's great. But hear me out. You will be doing it with the backup quarterback, whether you give the job to Blake Barnett or Dylan Duff or Jacob Knuth, none of which have the talent of Avery Johnson as of right now. You're going to have a brand new quarterback in a brand new system, likely with a brand new offensive coordinator, and you're going to be coaching for one more year. What does that say about the future? Let's wait one more year, then do the head coaching search when you know there's one guy that Gene Taylor wants and should absolutely hire. That is bullshit. And I'm not trying to just direct that at Chris Klieman, but when you look at this, Colin Klein wants the Kansas State job. He does. There's no 50-50 about it. There's not a, well, what if he doesn't want to come back? What if he doesn't want this? The guy wants to be at Kansas State. Take it from my words. Hold it to heart. That's the truth. The guy wants to be the head coach at Kansas State, and he's ready to be the head coach at Kansas State, at least in my opinion. Now, if you're Gene Taylor, what do you want your legacy to be? Seriously. You were a former AD of the year. You made some good hires. You made some great hires. You helped Kansas State through a different era of college football and a different era of where all this revenue sharing is gone. You've had a solid career. You might have messed up the Jerome Tang contract to an extent. You gave a ton of money. The buyout's ridiculous. Not saying we'd fire Coach Tang under a different AD, but you've done a couple different things. You gave away the Iowa State game to Ireland. That was kind of BS. I don't know what the hell we're doing. You've made a lot of short-sighted thoughts lately, and that hasn't exactly helped your legacy. Do you want to be the athletic director that wasn't able to get the guy that every single donor, every single player, every single coach, everybody who loves and cherishes Kansas State University as a whole, not even just Kansas State football, everybody associated with this university wants back home? Do you want to be the guy that prevented that? Because you couldn't have a difficult conversation with Chris Klieman and vice versa? You guys were together for decades. The loyalty's always been there. North Dakota State, Kansas State, same thing. My question is, why would you both push through one more year of mediocrity for a future that's going to be disastrous if you miss out on Colin Klein? Truthfully, you will lose every donor. You will lose every supporter. You will lose anything positively going for you right now if you miss this call. And trust me, there isn't a 50-50 about it. There won't be 2 seasons of, well, maybe Colin will wait another year, or maybe Colin will take a G5 job. The guy's too good for that already. The guy is truly going to get a power conference head coaching job, and there's nothing that Kansas State can say about it after this December. If you want the opportunity, make it happen this December. So, Gene Taylor, do you want your legacy to be the guy that everybody remembers as, okay, this is the dude that did the tough things necessary to save the future of Kansas State football when the right time was there? Not, like I said, not saying fire Chris Klieman. The guy deserves retirement. But you can't let him go one more year and miss your golden opportunity with Colin Klein. You just can't. You can't. It's as simple as that. Now, Chris Klieman said it himself, and I think this is the best way to say it. It's not his program. You know, people have talked about it. Kansas State isn't, back last year we even talked about it, the quarterback stuff. It's not a Will Howard program. It's not an Avery Johnson program. Chris Klieman said it's not my program. It's not Gene Taylor's program. This is the fans' program. Do you want to best serve the fans? You going one more year of 8-4 isn't going to do anything for us. Truly. You're not going to be in some elite standing for the team. You're not going to put us in the future of college football realignment. You are effectively missing the call of what Kansas State needs. And I'm not trying to say that you're a bad coach or anything like that, or you're a bad AD or anything like that to either of the guys, but you both need to get your ear to the ground, to look at the writing on the wall, because it is written, and it is written in neon ink for all I care. It is so bright, you can't even miss it. All of these job opportunities, all these job openings, everybody is screaming that it's now or never. If you're going to sit there and say, well, maybe, then it's never. If you're going to act and be the people you need to be to protect this university going forward, you need to act now. And it's ludicrous to think there's anything else in this situation. It is truly Colin Klein or bust. Since 2019, Mike Gundy and Chris Klieman have the same record. Mike Gundy's out of a job. Chris Klieman looks like he's in the last 2-3 years of Mike Gundy where it's the game's passing him by. It is time for new voices. It's time for new change. Kansas State needs to get back to its identity where it was with Bill Snyder. And I'm not saying that Colin Klein is Bill Snyder. I don't want to put that on the guy, but he's going to take every interview possible, but he will wait and he will listen and see what's happening with Kansas State. The second that call from Gene Taylor or whoever ends up making the call in the end says, you know, Colin, we got one more year with Chris, it's going to be a dial waiting number. Like nobody's going to be on the other line. Colin Klein will be in Stillwater. He'll be in Buffalo. He'll be in Boulder. He'll be in wherever he wants to be, because he's truly going to be a top 5 coaching candidate this offseason. And if you haven't seen that noise already with Oklahoma State, what the hell are you doing? And I say that to say this. If we fumble, and I say we as a Kansas State, if we fumble and Colin Klein, we try to beat around the bush on Colin Klein, I will not blame the guy for going elsewhere. That's truly a generational fumble by the Kansas State football athletic department. This is your golden hen. This is the guy that's going to get you to the future of Kansas State. There is no other coaching opportunity other than Colin Klein at Kansas State. That is the future of Kansas State football, and it's bullshit to think there's any other path forward than that. If there's a path forward, it's going to start half a step going backwards to try to get to any part of normalcy. And it's blasphemous to try to say anything different. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I know it's premature. I know we're having this conversation early, but this is the truth. There is no what if. It is this. It is Colin Klein wearing his visor on the sidelines at Kansas State, getting introduced by Gene Taylor before Gene Taylor does God knows what he wants to do with the rest of his career. The guy needs to make the right call. Otherwise, you go from Mount Rushmore Gene Taylor to a guy that's just sitting there figuring it out at, a G5 school or sitting on a beach or going to damn Boise, Idaho for all I care. If you guys messed this up, it is because Kansas State's athletic department failed you. And I truly stand by that. You, the fan, you were failed by Kansas State football. If that's what happens this year and you miss Colin Klein going elsewhere, because you truly will, that train's not coming back. We'll be left to dust, to time, as an old mining town of what once was. And all the futility, all the stuff like that, that awesome arc where we came back, boy, every single season is going to dip down a little bit lower. You can try to hire the right guy. If you don't hire Colin Klein and give the guy a shot, you are effectively dooming Kansas State football. I stand by that wholeheartedly. That will be my take until the end of the season. I pray this football team gets back on track. I pray Chris Klieman finishes out on some crazy, whatever, even like a 6-3 record, which would be average by most years, that'd be a godsend this year. Let the guy go out the way he wants to go, but you can't let it seep into the foundation of Kansas State in a sense where people are going to slip and crack their heads. That's where we're at. If you change nothing, and I mean nothing, because hiring an offensive coordinator, hiring a defensive coordinator, that ain't going to do shit. We've seen it with 4 different offensive coordinators. Avery Johnson's had 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 years, and we wonder why his confidence is shot. It's the same system. We just add a little flair. Everything changes. Okay? You want to do this thing right. Colin Klein gives you the best shot at retention on this roster. Doesn't matter if it's a star player or a guy that's considering leaving elsewhere. You're going to have guys that say, you know what? I believe in this journey. If you're Gene Taylor, you need to bury the flag, dude. This is the time to do this thing the right way. You can't just let it be a maybe cesspool of we'll see what the hell happens. You need to fix this because this is not Kansas State football. Chris Klieman's not in perfect health, and you can see that. Chris Klieman knows that. It's not a magic fix for Kansas State. You can't just flip a switch and say, all right, everything's better. We're all good. The culture is great. The locker room's great. We're back on the path to where we want to be. Chris Klieman's here for another 5 years till his contract's up. No, that's not how this works. Figure it out internally, then go external when the time is right to hire Colin Klein. And for K-State fans, don't freak the hell out when the guy takes interviews because he's going to get an interview in every single job opening. Truly. I mean, the guy's going to be mentioned in every single job opportunity. That absolutely is going to put the pressure on Kansas State. And like I said, Gene Taylor, you're in the land of forced hands. I hope you get used to it. Until the thing is done, it's going to be uncomfortable for a bit for Kansas State. That's where I stand. That's the video. The future won't wait around forever. Let's jump into the future rather than watch it go by on a train. That's going to be the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Hopefully they win this week. We'll talk about the Cats at the UCF game. We'll see how that goes. I'm not even going to give a prediction. I'm not ready for it. We'll see how it goes. Talk to you all later. Hope any of what I made sense in this video actually did make sense. I appreciate the love and support. And go Cats. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.